Hey YouTube, Kevin Cleary here with a video for you. Wanted to do a couple quick things. I'm actually set up here to do the review on the Spyderco Dragonfly, but before I do that I wanted to make another short video just talking about some of the challenges of knife ownership. Okay, you guys know that part of this will be a quick update to the knife confiscation and a follow-up to that. I have been able to send the knife back to the original sender, so what I'm going to do is post it under my profile for sale or trade and get rid of it that way, and hopefully I'll be able to trade it for an ADV Butcher. That's kind of what I'm thinking for a good trade on the Mark 6. Anyway, the way it works is if this happens to you guys, it has taken me some time, okay? But the way you need to do it is make sure that you talk to Canada Border Services. They're pretty helpful. They will kind of tell you the process. You can appeal it. I certainly did. When I appealed it though, I was able to talk to the actual reviewing agent who would kind of assess the product and assess my appeal. I was able to learn through her, and she was honest with me. She didn't say, you know, you're gonna have to wait and find out what I decide. She just said, look, this is what I'm thinking, and these are the criteria I'm going to be using. So what do you think is going to happen? And I was able to say, you know, based on that criteria, what she said was, I'm going to try to flip the knife open myself, and if I can do it easily with the flipper mechanism, then I'm going to consider it prohibited and in violation of this judgment, federal judgment, whatever. I can't remember the number. So because I knew, I mean, it's a custom knife. Obviously it's going to be smooth and it's going to flick out really nicely, which you want. But because I knew that, I just said, hey, I'm gonna just forget the appeal and send it back, okay? Now, once you get to that sending it back point, it's a detailed process, okay? So I'm not gonna go through all the details, but I will tell you, Canada Border Services is quite willing to help with that. There is a process, and I'll see if I can get a document to attach in the description box, but essentially you have to go, you know, you have to get the right address, and it's kind of detailed. You have to get the person to go, whoever you get to pick it up has to have a certain set of details that they have to follow in order to go to pick it up. You do have to send whatever documents you need to Canada Border Services. Otherwise though, you know, so there's a bit of a process, but they are good to help you with that, is essentially what I want to say. And I have been able to successfully send the Mark 6 back. So that's number one. Number two, along those lines, I wanted to tell you guys, I was recently I've got two stories to tell, and I'd like to hear your stories below, okay? So I was recently in Toronto, and we decided to go to the CN Tower. We went to the aquarium and it was awesome, but we decided to go to the CN Tower as well. And on the way in, I go through the metal detector, and there's a whole bunch of security guards there. I mean, like, there had to be 8 security guards standing at a number of stations. And I go in, and the guy says, what do you got in your pocket? I showed him the knife. He said, he opened it up, he closed it. He said, why do you have a knife? And I said, for cutting things, okay? And which he was like, oh yeah, pretty obvious. Now what he did ask is if I would put it in my wife's purse. And I said, yeah, that's fine. So what I want to tell you about that, the reason I tell that story is you might get asked, you know, you might get asked by a police officer, you might get asked by just an average citizen, or you might get asked by a security guard at a bank or some other place, what's the deal, why do you have a knife? And the answer to that is, and sometimes they'll ask it accusingly, you know, he kind of did, he's like, what do you have this knife for, son? You know, and I'm like, for cutting things, right? That's why you carry a knife. So don't get put off and don't be intimidated. Just explain. A knife is a really handy thing to cut stuff with. And that's why I carry one, because I often have the need to cut something. Okay, and that's all you need to say. Make sure you don't get into anything about self-defense or all that kind of stuff, because that knife will be confiscated if you do that. All right. Finally, I've got one other story to tell. This is about a friend. He was recently, I was chatting with him recently. He said, hey, did I tell you I got my knife taken? I was like, what? Did you get it back? And he was like, no, yeah, no big deal. But this is how it happened. You would not believe this. He goes to the bank. He's standing in line to see a teller, and maybe he was even at the teller. And the bank manager comes out and says, hey, can I talk to you for a second? He was like, yeah, sure. So he goes and talks to the bank manager, and the bank manager said, listen, this is I asked him a number of times to get it right. He said, we had Someone say they were scared and uncomfortable because there was a big guy carrying a knife. That's how they phrased it. And let me tell you, you know, the friend I'm talking about, he's not a scary guy. He just looks like a normal everyday person. You know, he's not tattooed up and like, you know, big, giant, muscular or anything like that. There's literally nothing overly intimidating about him. And I don't say that if you're watching to be offensive to you. I just say he's just a normal guy. Like, he's not the kind of guy who would walk in a room and you'd go, whoa, whoa, we better watch it around him at all. Like, not in the least, okay? So someone says, I'm intimidated. Anyway, it's a joke. It was incredible that that would even happen. But anyway, the manager says, can I have your knife? When you're done your banking, just come back and get it from me, okay? So he did that, and that was fine. Now, his age, I think, was the determining factor. I can honestly tell you, I've been all kinds of places. I've carried my knife everywhere, even places that probably it would be frowned on. I've never been asked, okay? And it's because I'm an adult, I dress a certain way, I look fairly competent, and usually when I'm going to these different places, because I'm involved in the event in helping or organizing in some way. So generally I'm the one who'd be asking somebody else that question. But what I can say is, if you're a young person, you should know that you'll probably get more flack about carrying a knife. So you may want to think about that in terms of where and how you carry. It was a Benchmade Griptilian that he was carrying. It was an orange Griptilian. It did not look like a scary military type knife at all. But it may be wise in that situation to drop it into your pocket. Okay, so what I'd really like to hear from you guys, I know this video is already longer than I wanted it to be, but I would love to hear you guys tell me stuff that's happened to you when you were carrying a knife. Times that, you know, people have challenged you about it. Times when, you know, a police officer, security guard, bank manager has said to you, I don't want you carrying it. And one other thing I'll give you is a few little points that I use to kind of lower the problem threshold, okay? When I'm around other people who are not knife people and I'm carrying a knife, there are a few things that I do that seem to help. Number one, tell them about the knife. Tell them why you like it. Tell them why it's awesome. You know, if I'm carrying this Hinderer, there's a lot to say. You know, Rick Hinderer is a firefighter. This is designed for, you know, emergency response. And since people know I'm a firefighter, immediately they're gonna go, oh, that's really cool, right? At first they were like, whoa, why is this guy carrying a knife? Now they're like, hey, that's really cool. This is a knife designed by a firefighter. It's designed for that person, you know. It just changes the tone of the conversation. You know, if I had this knife, I might say, hey, this is one of the most popular folding knives in the world, to the point that if you want one, it's actually hard to even just go out and buy one. And this is a special sprint run. You know, tell them something like that. And a lot of times it changes it from something they're scared of to something they're kind of interested in. Tell a story about when you needed your knife, and that's why you carry it all the time. My grandfather, you know, and this story works really well, and I've told it lots of times. My grandfather witnessed 2 people burn in their cars because no one had a knife to cut the seatbelt off, okay? And so I've told people that's one of the reasons I carry a knife. And as soon as they hear that story, they're like, hey, that's a legitimate reason, man. They can't take an issue with it, okay? Carry 2 knives. All right, carry one like this that you keep in your pocket, and then carry this one that you get out and cut stuff. Nobody is going to raise an eyebrow, I don't think, about a Spyderco Dragonfly. All right, and finally, there may be times when you think about hiding your knife. Now, especially if I'm EDCing a fixed blade, I wear a long shirt and I carry the fixed blade horizontally. So this is a folder, I know that, but I will put it in the sheath this way on my back, so it's going along with my belt, and my shirt comes down over it. And I've carried a fixed blade all kinds of places, never had a problem. The only time people can see it is when I wear my station gear for going to the fire hall. Obviously it has to be tucked in, you have to wear a belt. So then people can see the knife that I'm carrying, and there with the firefighters, they don't care. In fact, a lot of times they'll ask me, that's an awesome knife, where do I buy one? Okay, so there you go, just a little discussion, and please put in the comments below experiences you've had that were like that, where you've been challenged or asked not to or whatever in terms of carrying a knife. Talk to you later, guys, and look for the other video that should be coming right up, review of the Spyderco Dragonfly.